Welcome back to Hearthstone Grandmasters. I apparently still have some tea in my throat because I sound really weird, but we are ready to go for our winners match here today between Flurry and Kin, both with some pretty crazy series, it's got to be said. Kin in particular with the reverse sweep over Tyler, who I'm sure we will see some very salty social media posts about it a little bit later on. But before we can worry about him, we got to find out who is going to the semi-finals tomorrow to play off against Surrender and Glory as our two players who qualified yesterday in our other half of the top 8. And looking at these two players' deck lists, we can see with the Warrior ban from Kin and the Demon Hunter ban from Flurry, we are left with Priest, Rogue, and Demon Hunter for Kin, with that being a Galakron Priest, one of the few players to do so. And then Flurry, the Dragon Aggro Hunter, as well as the Rogue and the Highlander Mage. So some pretty non-standard deck lists, I think it's fair to say, in this top winners match.
Non-standard deck list and also an unexpected ban, I would say, at least from Kin's decision point, because I feel like that the Galakron Priest is meant to actually be a counter deck to Demon Hunter. So if you're banning that out, I'm not actually sure what Kin wants to run this deck into in particular.
Yeah, it may be the case that he's giving the benefit of the doubt to Flurry, who may not queue his Demon Hunter until like right at the end anyway. I don't know. Last Hero Standing can get a bit weird, but I agree. It's more easy to queue the deck that you want to in Last Hero Standing, given that after your opponent wins, you know that they have to queue the same deck yet again. But maybe he's just thinking, you know what, these other 3 decks are considered a little bit lower in power level compared to Demon Hunter at the moment, and sometimes raw power trumps strategy.
Yeah, I think we were seeing that also from, was it Rivius's
ban
decisions up against specifically Tom 60229, where we thought that Rivius's lineup was designed to prey on Demon Hunter, and yet that was the deck he banned away because Tom's remaining decks were kind of off the wall. So maybe it's a repeat of history, but now in a different format.
It definitely looks like it.
Is just going to be Flurry's Mage again versus Kin's Rogue. Both decks capable of high degrees of scamming.
And something I'm very curious about, talking about scamming, as you said, is that Dragoncaster. Because I would say in the 2 games that Flurry won in the first series of the day up against Staz, it felt like Dragoncaster was crucial to that game plan. So I was going to ask, do you think he'll keep it in the mulligan? But now I'll ask, are you surprised?
You know what? I'm not surprised. I think Flurry has a lot of reps on the deck. I mean, to just bring Mage as a whole decision point, it just means that you truly believe that despite all of the accusations of the deck being too reliant on the random effects, that overall it's consistent enough. And if you just keep the deck keep the card that lets you get to those high power level plays, then that, I guess, is the best way to make the deck consistent.
Doomsayer, always something that is tempting to throw down on turn 2. I think looking at Flurry's hand, though, he may rather go for it on turn 3. My thought process is that if he goes for it on turn 3, it will set up for a nice Twilight Drake on 4, hopefully uncontested. It does stop the Arcane Intellect, so maybe he could just save it and not play it for ages. I just don't think it's worth it here, is my main point.
Wow. Oh. He did the thing! Wait,
he did the thing.
Really good point, but
this guy's tough.
Somebody call Gallon. Flurry is in the bottom 40%, I guess, that disagree with the pinging your I don't know, man. Anyway, it's clearly to prevent exactly Seal Fate onto his own face, but I don't know about that one. You made a really good point about the Doomsayer play, though, because holding it back also really just didn't seem worth it. But I also don't think you should hold it back for that long with, like, say, Nova or Blizzard, because by that point, Rogue probably has an answer. I think saving it to deal with exactly 1 minion with Ray of Frost is a very good usage.
Yeah, I really, really like this from Flurry, seizing the board as quick as possible. He does kind of want to get the Arcane Intellect down at some point soon, and maybe this is an opportune moment to do so with the ping, so that he can find the big spell for Dragoncaster. But actually, now he's found the Conjurer's Calling. That's probably good enough already, and Rusty Raider works out perfectly.
it is insanely good for Flurry there. And I was going to say for Kin, the Shield of Galakron was a perfect draw because his other option for a play, there's something like Bone Wraith, but now he doesn't have any good answers. And this is the opportunity for Flurry to take control of the board. Kin is still a turn off being able to Witchy Lackey and Togwaggle. And by then, it might just be too much pressure. You just throw down the Khadgar as well. I like it.
Pretty cute play here as well. If the Bone Wraith is dealt with, it will obviously summon two 2/1s off the Death Rattle. Oh no, wait, I was wrong.
So the Reno, I'm actually a little bit surprised by this because it.
Were you expecting Dragoncaster?
I was expecting, yeah, Caster Conch
on the Rusteed. That did look pretty good, didn't it?
Yeah. I don't know, it seemed like a very low value board to Reno, and he could have just had a lot more pressure the other way around, I think.
Yeah, well, he does still end up with a very strong position here, it looks like. I'm looking at... Ooh. Okay, that might change things. But I was looking at Conjurer's Calling here. Yeah.
For sure. I'm
potentially
looking
two
at
of them.
Face, Dragoncaster Conj on the Dragoncaster, and probably Ray of Frost.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I was looking at an alternate line of value trade with the Reno Ping and then coin Dragoncaster Conjurer's Calling. Uses up the coin, which I don't like, but it does deal with the Togwaggle instead. It's kind of close.
So he's forgoing the Dragoncaster altogether. Goes for halfway development. Okay, so...
Okay, opts to hold back on the Dragoncaster. It's a little bit lower in terms of immediate tempo.
I guess Dragoncaster was in an effort to save...
But it does still very handily set up lethal is the main thing.
Right? I don't know. Maybe it's just opening up the possibility for an early box as an emergency switch if you save the Dragoncaster. In any case, still...
I think we may have just briefly lost Gia there. Or at the very least, I can't hear her at the moment, so I'm sure we'll try and get that sorted out as soon as possible. I may be talking over her right now due to various tech issues, but
Flurry, as it stands, is just one off.
I'm just going to keep talking and assume that it'll get sorted out as soon as possible. But either way now, the board development here for Kin is looking pretty strong.
Polymorph, yeah. That's a card that wasn't included in Highlander Mage in previous metas, but I guess made its way back recently.
And it may be in a situation now where there's too much pressure on the board. Obviously, 1 damage off lethal now for Flurry. His best way of finding that may be just going with a puzzle box after pushing everything face.
Because doesn't
that may just be unnecessarily risky.
Healing.
Still available if he wants to go coin Dragoncaster puzzle box. But I think I agree. Setting your opponent basically to 1, or exactly to 1 with the coin, feels more useful. Yeah, I really like setting Kin to 1 there by Flurry. Does force him to go for some kind of healing on this turn. Probably from Nozari here as the only real out. And it's not found. No worries.
I give up.
Do you know what? I think we were probably actually talking over each other, given the way that this setup works, and I said as much, so I'm sure that'll be hilarious. Please tweet us saying, ha 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 ha, when you hear this. But that does mean that the first match goes very, very handily there to Flurry. Kin just unable to find the necessary healing at the end to pull things back. And I think overall it was a very strong understanding of the matchup displayed there by Flurry, going with the play of going with the keep of the Dragoncaster in the mulligan. I think even though he didn't use it for most of the game, it really just demonstrates he knows what he's trying to achieve in the matchup, which is cheat out as much mana as possible.
Yeah, and I especially like that aggressive push from him. Even though it didn't involve using the Dragoncaster, he still managed to get the 8 to face, which I think was very key in setting up what turned out to be a 3-turn lethal setup, knowing that just Kin was falling too far behind. The Tog turn didn't really produce the best results off of the wand, and then just to take it. And I just want to apologize to everyone watching. We're dealing with a couple of issues with the programs we have to use because, of course, we're all working from different locations. I experienced a bit of a crash, but I'm back now and keeping Derek company.
Yeah, it's about time, Gia. We appreciate you trying to fit us into your busy schedule. But now for Flurry, obviously going to be sticking with the mage, given that once again this is last hero standing week here in the Swiss portion of Grandmasters. So the onus is on Kin to try and find a strong counter. And given that his Demon Hunter was banned, Rogue just lost. He is left with, I believe, the Warrior and the Priest. Oh, no, wait. It was his Warrior that was banned, actually. I believe, right? So he's left with Demon Hunter and Priest.
Right. And that makes the answer a lot easier. Queuing Demon Hunter into Mage always seems like a pretty good prospect, especially since all of the Demon Hunters, I think, in APAC are not OTK version anymore. Although that probably still has a good matchup against Mage.
Yeah, as we can see there, Warrior banned away. I fully agree. I think Demon Hunter is the only real choice here. The Galakron Priest really doesn't feel like it's targeted to beat Mage. It has a very lackluster late game. It is mainly just relying on removing in the mid game and just outlasting the aggro decks rather than beating the slow late game decks like Reno, Highlander, Mage. So definitely expecting the Demon Hunter, but before we can crack on with that game and find out who is going to be going through to the semi-finals tomorrow, we're going to have to go to a quick break before we come back with the conclusion of Flurry versus Kin. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Grandmasters. Apologies about the slight technical issue we had just a little bit earlier. I think we received confirmation that we were, in fact, talking like a garbling bunch of idiots over each other there. We'll try and get it sorted out for next time. But us being noobazoids aside, we need to move on to this series here, which is Flurry versus Kin. Yet again, our winners match here. The winner of whomst will move on to the finals, the semi-finals, I should say, sorry, tomorrow for trying to get the most points possible. The winner will get 6 points here in this week's Swiss, which will put them in very, very strong standing to get into Division A once we hit round robin. And at the moment, at 1-0 up, it looks like Kin is going to be in a pretty good shot of getting to that semi-final.
Sorry, was it?
Oh, sorry, Flurry.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm in conquest mode.
Like...
Sorry.
No problem. Flurry's definitely in a better shot to make it to semifinal, but it's also worth noting that Kin has the points advantage so far, as he already made a top 8 last week. Granted, it's just 3 points, and I can't quite remember if Flurry finished with 2 or 1. But one thing I will say is that every last point matters, because the difference between, 8th seed in Division A and 1st seed in Division A is not really big at all, because however they're seeded there at the end of it and how you do in round robin, but the difference between 8th in Division A and 1st in Division B is just miles and miles apart.
Yeah, it's not even comparable. It's just so much worse to be in Division B, which means the pressure is incredibly high for these players. So now that Kin has lost with his rogue, he needs to find a counter to the Highlander mage, which Flurry definitely does seem to be relying on to start off in these last 2 standing matches, maybe making himself a little bit exploitable as the matches continue today and tomorrow, depending on whether he loses. But I think we can both agree Demon Hunter really feels like the only choice for Kin.
Yeah, the priest definitely seems far too slow, although in the olden days of Res Priest, although it's not quite a Res Priest, right? But Res Priest versus Highlander Mage, that matchup I think was considered to be Mage favored in the end because of the power of Amazing Reno. So I'd assume a similar relationship between that and the Galakron Priest. So it really is just Demon Hunter now, and I expect to see Illidan trying his best to make sure that Jane is no longer an option for Flurry.
I definitely agree with that, especially as even worse than the Highlander variant, the Resurrect variant. Galakron Priest just has pretty much no late game at all. It's going to be very, very bad for Kin if he doesn't end up winning this match, or this game, I should say. To start things off, he's got a pretty nice starting hand, the Crimson Sigil into Umberwing. It's not absurd, but it's a very nice way to get things going and try and keep up the damage.
As for Flurry, though, the hand is no either.
True.
He's able to just let the Doomsayer go off on turn 2, and I absolutely think that there's no need to overreact just yet. Then he might be able to land an Escape Mana Saber unanswered, which is nearly a death sentence for Demon Hunter.
Possibly. I think it looks like Flurry's going to be taking quite a lot of damage in the early turns, and with a Metamorphosis to follow up, already I'm getting a little bit scared for Flurry.
Yeah, because Kin does have a great answer for the Doomsayer with the Eye Beam, Twin Slice if he wants to use it.
Yeah, I like just chilling here on the Twin Slice. He can very easily take out the Doomsayer, push the damage face, and now, unless a very cheap mystery AoE that doesn't spring to mind can come down, I think Mage is just going to be taking way too much damage. Oh, okay. There's that mystery AoE.
Yeah. Point Mana Saber. It will be another beating this turn for the Mage, but then we'll just be able to clean up the board and be ahead because the Mana Saber is going to stick.
Yeah.
However, does that even matter with a Metamorphosis hand?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not lights out for Kin whatsoever. He can just go double Twin Slice, I suppose, to take it out, or does this... Okay, this full clears anyway without even needing to trade, so the Mana Saber is definitely a pretty big pain. But he's still very happy, I think, to just keep plugging away at the face. That is a huge draw.
Yeah, it gives him something to do this turn, because Metamorphosis on turn 5 and not being able to hero power still means you take that another 2 turns to actually get the full 10 damage. So it's actually much better to be able to play it when you can immediately clear off.
Is it?
Immediately use the hero power, I think.
This play seemed...
What a day!
I don't think I like this play.
Well, I was looking at Kane face.
No.
I mean, at Kane for sure, but I don't know about Kane trade.
Okay, sure. I guess this is good. My thinking was just that if you go Metamorphosis last turn, you can go Skull of Gul'dan on turn 6. You keep the Kane for the taunts, which is a huge deal because now look at all these taunts that Kane is going to have to try and plug away to get through.
You know what? Good point. But wait. Okay, I was looking at the Warclaves this turn.
He is, right?
But without using the hero power charge on it, would it have been worth to use just double twin slice go face?
Sure,
these
okay.
have been going so fast.
They've been going so fast. Yeah.
He does end up being able to get some face damage in, so that's the important part.
And he does end up winning the game.
Yeah. What? What?
I believe that's just lethal, right? Priestess double twin slice hero power.
Yeah. Both slices left. That. Too much happened. I could not keep up. I hope you have a better analysis.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, we're arguing about small things over the course of this game. I think overall, Kin's plan was perfectly good. And to be fair, going with the Kane turn, it forced Flurry to react. Even with 2 taunts in hand, Kin was still able to very, very easily get through everything Flurry threw down. So maybe I'm overreacting. I think his line of play was perfectly reasonable. He still had a very strong game plan. He was lining up Kane on 4, Metamorphosis hero power on 5, and then on 6, and then Skull on 7. I think is a perfectly reasonable way to go about things, and it worked out really well for him there in a flurry of plays. We're equalized in this series.
Yep. It's funny though, just to think about how all 3 of us, including Kin, just diverged in our thought processes, and
yeah.
I wonder which is the most consistent towards the end. I would assume it's Kin's. But yeah,
I'd assume it's mine.
It's true. You are the number 1 in the world.
Thank you, Jay.
I'm just
Thank you.
removing the Europe part from the claim and title here. It's too long. Just number 1 in the world. Genius
Agreed.
Detective.
Agreed. A genius / great Hearthstone player. But now that we are equalized at 1 game apiece, and this is last hero standing, now the onus is back on Flurry to find a counterpick to Demon Hunter. Not an especially easy task to do, but it does sound like, from the word from our wonderful producer, that it is going to be the Dragon Hunter here, the Dragon Aggro Hunter that's going up against the Demon Hunter from Flurry versus Kin. It's an interesting deck list, one that you said quite correctly we haven't seen really since Demon Hunter took over ladder. But what are you thinking in this matchup?
Well, my first instinct is that Demon Hunter should have a pretty good time because the way that the Dragon Hunter is to win games is just making sure they have the early board, and probably around turn 4 they can just start going face and get there with the eventual burst of Corrosive Breath or Dragon Bane, so on and so forth. However, getting the early board is no effect against Demon Hunter because they have tools like the Umber Wing, just the hero power itself, and Twin Slices to be able to clean up the Fairy Dragons. And I think when Dragon Hunter is ever in a responsive position in the early turns, they just don't get the game.
I definitely agree with you there. The best chance they have is just to start pushing everything face as quick as possible, which can definitely work against the Demon Hunter, but even just the small amount of healing they have in double I-Beam might be enough to swing the advantage back in the favor of Demon Hunter. But we can definitely agree, I think, that the first few turns are where the magic happens for both of these decks, trying to lock down the board as quick as possible, and Demon Hunter does feel traditionally like it is very, very strong at that. But again, you have to think, for Flurry here, same as with the Mage that he brought, if he's bringing this Dragon Hunter deck, he needs to have some strong reasoning behind it. He needs to know how to play it very, very well, which I think Flurry absolutely will. So at the very least, I'm excited to see what he can conjure up with his play.
And already, an interesting set of choices. I feel like the Corrosive Breath would be very useful to just deal with Demon Hunter minions, but because Flurry is on the play, I think it's far more important for him to look for a 1-drop and he didn't get it. So he'll be playing from behind from now on, which is not the spot you want to be in.
It really, really isn't, especially as Kin just has the absolute dream hand to fight for tempo in the early game. I think he picked the freeze there, which seems like a very strong pick. He can go for Umberwing this turn, freeze on 3, Kane on 4. What a curve.
And Flurry can Corrosive Breath on the Sightless Watcher, but then the Umberwing, it's just these 1 health minions or 1 attack minions also that just present a very annoying problem for Dragon Hunter, even in the previous meta, because all of their damage allocation tends to go in 3s or 2s.
Right, yeah.
It's actually Freezing Trap first for Flurry, which, you know what, I kind of like it.
Mm-hmm. Why is it not just a Corrosive Breath there? It looked like a pretty clean trade to me, just to reset the board.
I think that the thinking is the Freezing Trap would be harder to use on isolated minions later on.
That's fair.
Granted, it is kind of rare for Flurry that he actually drew the secrets, which means the phase stalkers in the deck just don't do anything with the hero power.
It happens sometimes, though. I think he's only running 2 secrets in the deck full stop, so it's not especially unlikely that he will draw them before his 1 phase stalker that he also has in there.
Oh, the freeze is a nightmare here. And now
Yeah,
he
I think
has
you have
kinda
to
go for
Corrosive.
yeah, right.
Yeah, no choice now. Pressure Plate versus Hero Power. I mean, I think at this point you'd probably rather just play the secret. Okay, I was going to say you want to play the secret because you have to fight for board, but given how little stuff he has to do over the next few turns, is it worth weaving in the Hero Powers there instead?
It's so hard to tell, right? Because he's
Yeah.
got so few cards in hand. It could go one way or the other that he just goes for the complete face plan, but it's very much dependent on the kind of cards he draws. If he starts getting things like Rot Nest Drake, for example, you'd much rather fight
Yeah.
for board, I think. But if what you draw is like Dragon Bane and so on and so forth, maybe the weaving is worth it. So Sightless played for 4 mana over the Kane, I guess to specifically respect Rot Nest Drake.
Yes, yeah, that definitely feels like it. It's worth mentioning as well that he knows 100% what the secret is, given that there's only 2 in the deck, and Flurry's already activated 1. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say he could play a spell there to just activate it and get the minion out of the way if he's expecting Rot Nest Drake that much, but I don't think he can have that hard of a read, so it's probably worth just holding back on the spells for now.
And he's actually choosing to go for the Warglaives here, which I feel like is a little bit too slow. I was looking at the Kane for the value trade, just play a Battle Fiend. It seemed quite strong onto the board. Okay. Whereas this way, he's taken a bunch of damage. Flurry might now have the license to respond. Ooze off the top is huge as well. How did Kin find himself behind in this situation?
Yeah, it's a bit of a miracle, it feels like.
Yeah. And Demon Hunter's removal outside of I-Beam mostly relies on actually tanking the damage to get rid of stuff, and that is helping the Hunter game plan. Of course, Flurry's still lacking the damage if we add together a bunch of Stormhammer hits.
Right.
But he might get there.
Feels like one of the few technical misplays we've seen from Kin so far this today, given that he just didn't really think through his turn there and attacked before he played the Battle Fiend. I don't think there was any reason to do it that way. And, you know, in these kind of situations where it's really, really close, those small differences can definitely be all the difference. Ooh.
And a very hard choice there for Flurry if he wanted to actually go face with the Stormhammer or clear a minion. But I think he realized that the hand lends itself more to just removing things, assuming he draws a Dragon, which I guess is the most likely class of card for him to draw.
That is not a dragon.
Oh no, that's the worst draw in the deck!
That is an absolute disaster. I mean, he has to start going face now, right? There's no other game plan.
Yeah, and he's got to play the Rot Nest Drake too, in my opinion.
I think so as well. The problem is as well that it just opens him up to I-Beam if he does that.
It does, but I mean, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
it just can't exist as a card in Flurry's
Agreed.
mind here.
I agree.
And Kin can play it
Kane-
for the outcast.
Yeah, he could go like double trade with Kane and I-Beam in, which doesn't really develop much onto the board, but I think it's just worth it to save him the health, right? Or he can just trade. Okay, fair enough.
So this way, he doesn't have the lethal on the next turn, but he didn't take the heal. I'm not 100% sold on this line.
It does give him the highest amount of stuff on board this turn, but I agree.
But given that you're on 10, Hunter's showing 3 and hero power, so they have a 2-turn lethal guaranteed.
Right.
Assuming you can't taunt or heal anything. I guess he's unlikely to die on this turn exactly, and then he could just I-beam his own minion. But
Sure.
I feel like he would have gotten more done over 2 turns with
By just going face. Yeah.
and trading away Kane, right? Because you okay, so you get the 6 that turn, you trade off the 3, don't get to play the 4. So it's like you lost 1 damage, but you are able to heal 3. It's close for sure. And Primordial to Primordial is not bad at all.
Wow, these are some pretty premium dragons. Twin Tyrant? Would you just take Deathwing? Oh.
I don't think it's
Boo.
I think no. I like the Evasive Worm a lot because you have the mana to play Evasive Worm Hero Power, and he's just
Okay.
Flurry sees 5. He has 3 and 2, so he's just hoping there's no heal.
Warlock.
Wait, is there a lethal? I'm gonna say no, but maybe the sigil.
10, 14, 15 as I see it.
Yeah. And the sigil do something.
Raging Fell Scream allows for a 3-mana priestess, which still can't be played. Yeah, I don't think that's lethal.
So he's got to trade. Flurry hates to see the heal. He's super stressed out for good reason as well.
I mean, he's got to be thinking here, what if I made the wrong choice on the dragon as well? Like, was Deathwing his only out now in this situation? He'd probably just be dead. Yeah.
But can you fault him though? In most
No.
Definitely not. I mean,
Definitely not.
hard to put Kin on having exactly the heal there, but he's not completely out. There's Dragonbane. There's
So is it his only out to find something of Primordial? What even is there?
I couldn't tell you.
Cobalt into double Arcane Shot?
Yes.
One-off lethal.
One off. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's just not enough mana.
He's got to play it. Maybe he's forgetting something.
Well fought.
That's not it. That came down to the wire. It's really just... I mean, you did look back on the turn where Kin had the option to use I-Beam and trade with Kane to clear, or just take what he did and trade with the Gladebound and develop 2 minions. Ultimately, Kin's line won him the game, for sure, because holding back the information of the I-Beam made Flurry just kind of change his game plan to go for a setup for, you have no heal, I'm going to kill you this way.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's the best line overall.
I think it was. I think I liked Kin's lines because the problem was that by trading into... we may be tunnel visioning too much on Flurry just going for lethal, because if he trades in the Kane and the I-Beam, then if his 6/4 is killed off on board, then maybe Flurry's just winning board and can go for the win that way. I don't know. It gets really, really complicated there. But I think it speaks a lot that the only real obvious mistake we've seen from Kin all day has just been when he, missed 1 damage on a Battle Fiend, which is such a minor thing. It's the kind of thing that maybe can have big consequences, but I think it really speaks to how well he understands the matchup. So that's pretty much it from what I've seen.
Yeah, and we can call it minor in the way that it does not reflect any doesn't reflect badly at all on his game plans and just the clarity of how you can see the lines. Just
Yep.
is a matter of sloppiness, which we consider in Hearthstone to be a very small thing in the grand scheme of things, unless you're certain people in chat. So we now are going to get into the game with Flurry no longer able to queue up his Hunter. So what's even left to deal with Demon Hunter? I think it is his Rogue.
The Rogue, yeah. After the Demon Hunter was banned, Mage and Hunter have now lost. Rogue is his last remaining deck, which up against the Demon Hunter and the Priest from Kin. I mean, I think you could definitely make the argument that he has two favorables left over here. The Demon Hunter, we were definitely saying we feel like the Demon Hunter is in the lead, given the amount of damage it can do, Rogue's lack of healing. But the stats seem not to reflect that, actually, at least in Asia Pacific. Again, it's a relatively small sample size. But even having said that, it's not minuscule. It's at least, tens of games that we're seeing in it. And it does seem to reflect that Rogue, generally, it looks like can lock down the board effectively enough, and then I would imagine go for Lethal or Galakron to close things out.
Yeah, I think a lot of the favorable matchup for Rogue centers on just having backstab. That's really the big one.
Yeah.
The early game matters so much because if Rogue falls behind, they just can't get back. That's a fact, I think, because Demon Hunter is just able to push damage and damage. However, for Rogue, it's a little bit harder because even if Demon Hunter has a slow start, and we've seen this across many panouts of the matchup, sometimes they can scrunch together the damage and take advantage of the fact that Rogue no longer has access to Ziliax. Their only healing is from the armor of Galakron, and that's a very expensive turn. So suddenly, Metamorphosis or Warglaves could just pull Demon Hunter to the finish line.
I agree. That's definitely the way the matchup seems to shake out, especially as, like you say, backstab is so crucial. And now with Spy Mistress in the deck, especially if you're going first, in a way, it kind of feels like an extra backstab. It's obviously got less combo potential for your Edwin or Miscreants or SI7s if you've got them in the deck, but just being able to throw it on one, leave it stealthed, go for the attack to kill off a key minion when you have to. It's like fantastic delayed removal that really preys on what you're trying to do versus Demon Hunter. I mean, I was going to say I expect to see that. It's the only matchup we can see now, given that Kin has to line up the Demon Hunter again, and Flurry has to line up the Rogue. But looking at the list now, specifically, we should mention that it is the stealth version of Galakron Rogue, rather than the secret version. If you had to predict, do you think that's going to be helping or hindering him? Would you rather have the secret or the regular stealth version here?
I actually think the stealth version could help a little bit more because the Demon Hunter's only way of interacting with stealth minions is with us. And outside of Spy Mistress, it's asking a lot to actually clear stealth stuff through Altruist. And that means that any stealth minions from the Rogue get to dictate how the trades go down, and that's a very big deal. Whereas secrets, I think, Demon Hunter can ignore a lot of them. If a Bamboozle comes down, for instance, well, Demon Hunter just goes face, you never profit. Interesting
hand now for Flurry. Obviously, Kin's, it doesn't play itself, but it's looking like a pretty powerful, straightforward hand. A Battle Fiend into Umberwing, and then figure it out from there. Flurry's, on the other hand, could go for a huge Edwin come turn 3, which, to be fair, the Demon Hunter has limited answers to. But I guess one hidden answer to Edwin is killing your opponent.
Yeah, not hidden at all. Kin's already going for it without knowing about it. But, yeah, the way that the hand pans out, it looks like it's the only line he can go for, because the other option is what? Coining a Devoted Maniac? That seems extremely slow.
Yes. Could have seen double hit into the Battle Fiend, but instead Flurry is saying, I guess you take off a comparable amount of damage while taking less damage overall by clearing off the 1/1s.
And it also conveniently doesn't get mega punished by the Shadow Weaver. This is a blisteringly fast start for Kin here. Oh, the Seal Fade off the top.
Huge top
coming in
set.
clutch.
Well, now we're looking at a much cleaner Edwin, I suppose you could say. And well, actually, the Taunt one is really not bad. We can now see play the Lackey,
Edwin
bounce it back, Edwin taunt it up, maybe even with a Praise Galakron thrown in there as well. Maybe just pick Chaos Strike.
It is the cheapest. I don't know. I'm
Like
not
turn
seeing a
5
good
Metamorphosis.
Way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking for a way to set up a glaive bound for turn there, so it does look like it might just be Metamorphosis that turn. I honestly think that whatever comes off the top might not even matter the way Kid's hand is panned out.
Whoa! I mean,
Okay.
there's only one choice, right?
Right. As long as the taunt ends up going on the Edwin at the end of the turn.
Yep.
So...
I mean, okay, I guess he thinks he can get a better option potentially here than Taunt.
Oh no, that's not the good lackey for him.
I don't know if that was worth it. I don't think there's anything... Like, obviously he was looking for Kobold, right, is I think the thinking there.
Right.
And then I guess he could have gone clear the board, massive Edwin, and then stealth it up the turn after. Maybe that's worth it.
I mean, Kobold or the Rush obviously not ideal, but I don't know. In the end, that's still just 1 in 3 each time.
What? Is this really not a big Edwin turn? I guess there's just too much damage on the board, he's thinking. He has to go for it next turn.
I guess so, but by that point, is he not just... Okay, given that, we can also see, though, that he has Taunt available. Or the Edwin, but Kin could just go for Meta for 2 turns.
Yeah, the problem is that Chaos Strike Hero Power puts him to 6 instead of 5, which is just like 1 crucial point away. But I mean, either way, he can just go Hero Power Face, and I think he's guaranteed a win because Galakron can't come down in time. I get what Flurry was going for here. It was basically just the pray that there's no Metamorphosis line and take the damage this turn, clear up, and then have an unbeatably large Edwin come turn 5.
Yep. I can see it as well. I'm still for out. But it wouldn't trying to evolve into a lifesteal minion, which means you wouldn't have the mana to taunt the Edwin.
Yes, he'd have to do it this turn.
Doesn't make sense. So...
Well, actually, maybe it does. Maybe that's the best chance he has of winning, because otherwise he's just dead, I think, right?
Over 2. Yeah, guaranteed versus maybe they don't have any rush minions, any charge minions, or weapons to go face. It's really tough.
It's incredibly tough, I agree.
Oy, oy, oy.
I mean, okay, so Kin is just running through his heads. What could running through his singular head? What could possibly go wrong here? How can the rogue conceivably heal? Nothing in the deck. Galakron can't come down for a turn. No way of getting a coin that I can think of. Togwaggle doesn't matter because you can't play the spell, even if he had a prep, which I don't think he could even have because it only preps for 2 now. So it has to be evolve into immediate heal, which means Sandhoof Waterbearer is the only answer. I think that's the only card that does that in the game right now.
There's no lifesteal charge.
Yeah.
And this is not Highlander Rogue, so there's no weird Zephyrus Wind Fury out for lethal either.
Yeah.
So...
Well, actually, yeah, I guess the out is maybe like, getting a Spell Lackey into Dragon's Horde into whatever card heals you. I don't even know.
And
something stupid like that.
Just forgoes playing a minion altogether to make sure that if there's some type of lifesteal rush or like target enemy minions only to heal.
Right. Maybe he generates I-Beam or something as well, you know.
Right. So it's not an option for Flurry.
Although I suppose I-Beam could target friendly minions. But either way, we're going very, very deep down the rabbit hole here. As we can clearly see, try as Flurry might, I just don't think there's any evolve options that save him here.
No evolves, and no outs for lethal either.
So many options. Access your
No, Valera, there's no options. Be quiet.
Going for 6.
And there you have it. Kin advances to the top 4. We'll be seeing him again tomorrow, joining Surrender and Glory. And there is still one last spot left, though. So Flurry's not out of it just yet.
And I gotta say, I really could not be more happy. I'm a big fan of Kin. You know, you were saying you've known him for a long while in terms of his standing in the Asia-Pacific competitive community, but now he's finally getting his exposure to the rest of the world after his very strong performance at Masters Tour Bucharest. I'm so happy. I think he's just playing really solid Hearthstone with very, very few mistakes indeed. And that's why he seems to be doing so consistently well. Top 8 last week, just falling short of getting through to the top 4. Now this week he gets the top 4. Who knows? Maybe even a win come tomorrow.
For sure. I mean, I am not going to call out any specific person this time because I just think last week I really had a strong feeling about Rivius because his lineup really stood out as being the one that's unique and strong. This time, though, both Surrender and Glory and also Kin seem like they have a good shot at it. So all we can talk about now and speculate on is who you think will be taking that last spot.
Well, if we're going to talk about that, we need to look at the bracket to see who is left in the running to take the final spot. Flurry drops down to the decider match where he will be awaiting either Staz or Tyler. The elimination match is going to be coming up next. And Tyler, after what looked like a pretty easy sweep, was going to be coming through with his warrior, was so devastatingly reverse swept in one of the craziest series I've ever seen by Kin. Now he's up against Staz. I think he might be in with a slightly better chance. We were saying we like Staz's lineup overall, pretty similar to Surrender's. But I have to say overall, I like Tyler's chances in this matchup.
Based on the lineups, I'm not sure I agree. Just because Tyler has got the mage, which I think Staz been preying on quite a lot recently. Maybe not panning out for him, but we can see that just based on how he feels, both the Hunter and Demon Hunter are things he would like to queue into mage. And the other difference is that I think Staz has been consistently banning Warrior. And without Out of the Way, it's one of Tyler's strongest decks. Although I could also see a world where Staz gets rid of Demon Hunter.
Yeah, that does make sense to me. Obviously, this is last hero's standing, however, so one weak deck is not necessarily the undoing of a lineup. Like, if Mage